Thanks, Rob. All right, today's panel, we're going to be talking about DSP and the opportunities for search marketing. Today on the panel, we have Frost Prelo. He's the founder and CEO of Simplify, which is a demand-side platform that integrates search and display. Prior to that, Prelo was a founder and CEO of Personify, a contextual and behavioral targeting company that was sold to Collective Media in 2008. David Rudnitsky is my next panelist here, and he's a founder and CEO of PPC Associates, a position he's held since the inception in 2008. And he currently serves on several advisory boards, including Marin, MediaPost, and MediaCause, and apparently a travel stealth startup there.
Yes, right.
And then Jonah is batting cleanup here, and Jonah is the director of digital for media for Scripps Networks, which is a lifestyle media company. Jonah manages the internal digital agency overseeing search display, social, and email marketing across Scripps brand portfolio, including Food Network, HGTV, and the Travel Channel. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, so today we're going to cover what the opportunities for search marketers are in the DSP space. I think the first question we wanted to kind of cover is maybe from a show of hands, or is everybody still here off to Bloody Marys there? Who's familiar with what DSPs are, what the differences between DSPs are, DMPs, RTBs, ATDs? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, more than I thought. Frost, maybe could you quickly cover what some of the differences are between those?
Sure.
The remainder of the
crowd. I just say that I echo George's tweet up here on the most heated debate on the number of drinks. Okay, very quickly, because most of you probably know this. SSPs, supply-side platforms. People have a supply of inventory. These are the platforms they use to put those out to auction, right? To real-time bidding auction. DSPs, demand-side platforms. This is what bidders use to people who are buying inventory. That's what they use to bid on the hundreds of thousands of auctions per second that are available through real-time bidding. Most DSPs, by the way, are transparent. I think, and so there's a comment when people aren't transparent, so most are. What was the other one? DMPs, data management platforms. These can either be independent, and there are some where this is basically a platform where advertisers or publishers, or some combination of the two, manage their own data and use that data to buy across various platforms. Many DSPs are integrating DMPs. What else? ATB? Agency trading desks basically are, in my view, would be in the holding companies, sort of the center of excellence that, that the holding companies have created to manage real-time bidding. Probably argue with any of that, but that'd be my 2 cents.
Joe, anything else?
I was going to say, I think Frost described it perfectly. I don't know if we're going to be able to add too much, but there is a...
Echo.
Echo, exactly. There's a really smart Forrester analyst by the name of Joanna O'Connell who wrote a really great research piece called The Future of Digital Media Buying. I would encourage everyone here to pick it up. It's worth the $500, $600 or whatever it is, because it really clearly breaks out the differences and how these are sort of all overlapping.
Great, thanks, Jonah. So let's open it up to the panel here. Why do you feel search marketers are well positioned to manage DSPs?
I'll start. I think my overarching theory is search marketers came of age in a very quantitative world, which is search marketing. And I think that traditional media buyers, and I'm just going to be nice and exclude everyone in this room as not being a traditional media buyer, have the more branding approach, and I think branding, as Eric Schmidt said, the last bastion of unaccountability is the corporate marketing department, and he said that back in like 2002, and he was really going after the sort of Madison Avenue fat cats who had the 2 martini lunches and just talked about sort of lift and awareness, and we have $1 billion to spend on our Anheuser-Busch ad, and let's just spend it wherever we can. So I mean, I think search really disrupted that whole mindset, and now we're coming to a period of convergence, really, where the technology that the DSPs are providing and other partners are making it available to search marketers to really start to get into media buying, and it's really, if you will, it's democratized media buying, so that you don't need to have a Rolodex of 600 contacts and sign and scan contracts all day long, have a sophisticated ad server even. So the hope in my mind is that, in a way, we're the new kids in the block, and we come in with our very quantitative approach, looking at lots of data, and we're able to just basically outflank all the other sort of media buyers who are just used to fuzzy metrics. And we'll see. I mean, that's probably, I will say that, you know, I think a lot of people have come into search engine marketing, and they look at, you know, they read the Google AdWords manual, and they think, oh, this is pretty easy, I can do this. And you know, it's search engine marketing is something that's easy to do, hard to do well, and I think that's true for any area of expertise.
Like Sudoku.
Like what?
Like Sudoku?
Yeah. It's not even easy to do, as far as I'm concerned. So from that perspective, I have this. I have probably I realize that I have some naivete here. I'm looking from the outside, and I probably think it's a lot easier than it is, and I realize I don't know what I don't know. But my general feeling is search marketers can start to figure it out, and our data-driven culture will enable us to have efficiencies over the old school.
Gentlemen, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd add. So on our platform, search marketers do better than brand marketers all day long because they know keywords, number one. They know the Google Content Network, and there's a lot of analogies from Google Content Network over onto contextual targeting, keyword-based contextual targeting on the real-time bidding, and they know how to drive to ROIs. And so, I mean, search marketers, you know, we see it all day long, for people who care about ROI, they're winning, at least from what we see.
It's officially the Google Display Network now, by the way.
Excuse me, yes.
GDN.
GDN.
What did I call it?
Google Content Network. That's so 2009.
A question would be, what will be called next year?
Google Social Display Performance Network.
Mobile, put mobile in there.
Voice
+1.
search.
Yeah. Bingo.
So next question I had for the panel is, how do you feel the DSPs are performing in terms of segment targeting and integration of third-party data?
Can I take a crack at that one first?
Please.
Yeah, I think what the previous panel said is absolutely spot on. I think your most important data is your own. And as a brand marketer who has the fortune of having owned and operated sites that I can pixel and segment and then take to the exchanges, I think that we've definitely found that our own data is our best. And when we think about renting third-party data, what we found is a much better approach is buying really strategic sites, placing cookies on the users that are exposed to the ads on those sites, and using that as our vehicle to rent data instead of just renting this commoditized data.
Yeah, so you're buying impressions and dropping cookies and creating segments that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. So for
so I would say, I would say there was a talk about all data not being commoditized. I think there's a big chunk of data that is commoditized. And I think more and more the difference on the performance of that data is how the advertiser, how the platform, how the algorithms use that data. And so going forward, I think, I see some smirks up here, I think there's going to be more, there's chunks. Now, first-party data is always the best, right? And that's never, and people aren't going to sell it. That's valuable. And how people use their own first-party data is a huge value proposition that a lot of the folks on the last panel are up here helping you do. Third-party data, I think there's a ton of it out there that, that can be very valuable. It ends up being how the advertiser and platform use it.
For the real-time bidding space, or I think you referred to in one of your articles, Frost, as instant search retargeting. How do you differentiate that between, say, instant search retargeting from real-time bidding?
Okay, so real-time bidding is the whole world of real-time bidding. Is the whole world of these 100,000 plus auctions happening per second, hundreds of billions per month, and that's the whole world. That's the whole envelope. Instant search retargeting is within search retargeting, which is targeting people based on their search history. Instant search retargeting is targeting people who have searched on the prior impression. And so basically, the search engine results page, you click on a link, and if there's an ad available on the page you go to, it's actually targeting people right there. And so what we've seen in that is sort of, it varies by vertical, varies by ad, but often that impression may have 4 to 10 times the click-through rate than an impression served a week after to that person who'd searched. So that would be sort of the difference there.
What percentage of your traffic on Simplify is that sort of retargeting versus, I guess, as I understand it, a lot of the search retargeting is sort of cluster-based?
Right, so there's keyword-based search retargeting and cluster. We're 100% keyword-based, which basically just means that, just like search, you can bid report and optimize at the keyword level. And you see all your prices, all your CPA, CTR, CTS, et cetera, on keyword base. So yeah, that's the way we do it. And we see, I mean, it's interesting, the curve on sort of over a month, we'll see about 20% of our impressions within the first day of over a month, and then over the month the rest will fill in. And I think the instant is about 5% of our total inventory.
So for search marketers who are looking to utilize a DSP, what should they be wary of when choosing a provider?
I can take a crack at that, having gone through that very process about a year ago. I think the biggest thing for us is you want to make sure you choose a DSP that has a clear stance in the market. There's so many DSPs that have these really kind of convoluted back-end deals with the actual inventory that they're going to be supposedly letting you agnostically buy across. So I think a DSP that has a really clear, strong stance in the market is really important. And then I think from there, I think you go with a DSP that's large enough that fits your business. For us, you know, being a, I guess you probably categorize us as a smaller to mid-size agency, we wouldn't feel comfortable going with, you know, some of the largest shops out there. So we chose a provider who was large enough, defined enough, but still small enough that they could grow with us, not just listen to what an agency had to say, be able to sort of take our own business requirements and build that into the system that they're building.
So, John, when you say stance, does that mean transparent versus ARB? Does that mean access to all in, or what does a strong stance mean?
I would say it's not Google owning you like an Invite Media.
Ooh. Let's bring Lauren back up.
I need Bloody Marys on a stage.
You know, from my perspective, and I'm very much a newbie when it comes to DSPs, so I'm still looking on the outside in. But the thing that has, I guess, troubled me the most about DSPs is the lack of granular reporting. A lot of times when I have conversations with DSPs, I get this sort of a response, which is the sort of Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. You know, give us your creative, tell us what your objective is, and we'll go hit it for you. And I just can't, as a search marketer, I mean, sort of being like a, you know, obsessive compulsive data freak, I just can't get around that, and I really want to just dig deep, deep, deep. And so I'm glad, Frost, that you guys have keyword level bidding, and I don't know to what degree the reporting exists in the same manner, but you know, I really get nervous. I get nervous trusting someone else to hit my metrics for me, and I also get nervous as an agency just giving someone else responsibility to do the work for me and not feeling like I'm adding any incremental value other than choosing the right DSP.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. So we see a push-pull between, search marketers want to be hands-on, right? They want to look at their own keywords. They want to adjust bids. They want CPC, CPM bids, you know, by keyword. They know, hey, these keywords work in search, and I want to use those exact keywords. On the flip side, there's a whole world out there of keywords that might not have worked in your search campaign. Maybe they're too expensive, maybe what, you know, maybe a whole host of reasons that may work on a DSP with keyword level search retargeting. So there's this sort of push and pull between, do you want to be hands-on and do all the data, which you can, or do you want to use the black box and click it on and say, hey, go optimize to my CPC or my CPA. And you know, the fact is, in the end of the day, we have people who do both, but the computer can do more than the human in the end, because you end up looking at not only does this keyword work, but does this keyword work on this site with this creative at this time of day. And it's all those combinations that only when you have 50 milliseconds to make a response on a bid, that only the machines can figure out what to bid on and what can't.
Yeah, and I'm looking for sort of reactive, not regressive, not what's the opposite of regressive?
Progressive?
Progressive? No. Predictive. Regressive, not predictive analytics here. So, you know, my sort of stance, you know, every search marketer I think has a love-hate relationship with Google. Obviously, we all love Lauren. But, you know, sometimes we get in situations where I talk to someone and they say, well, you know, the Google team's already managing our account for us, so we don't need an agency. And I tell them, you know, having Google manage your account is like having the IRS file your taxes for you. You know, it's you really don't want to depend on that. And so I would say the same thing is true for DSPs. I mean, I'm totally open to DSPs.
Quick, someone post that.
Yeah, totally open to the DSPs suggesting, you know, alternative areas to market to. And it's the same with like the broad match algorithm on AdWords. I'm totally open to seeing what's matched, but I want to have the data so that I can then go back and quickly correct what the machine thought was the best matching solution, but clearly wasn't. And we have a client called EchoSign, which is an electronic signature client, and the broad match algorithm matched them on E. coli and on sign language, because maybe semantically it sounds similar. And that's the kind of thing that, I just never like that notion of just trust us, we'll do what's right for you. And it may be the best intentions, but sometimes the results are not what.
I think it really depends on the type of DSP you work with and the type of arrangement you set up with them. For instance, our DSP, we're licensing their technology, so we're in full control of it. We're driving. They've given us the keys to the ignition with some training. So I think that helps you sort of overcorrect, to your point, some of the rudimentary, sometimes simple decisioning that a machine would make versus a marketer who has the insight. So I think that's how you overcome that as a search marketer.
Yeah, and even so, if you can, the algo can do the driving, but you still see exactly how many impressions are on each keyword, on each domain. So you still have all the granular reporting, but it's just the decision. It's just who's doing the decisioning.
Well, my general thought, just to end that point, and I agree with Jonah. I mean, obviously, any good relationship is a two-way street. It's not. No one would ever just say, "Here, do this stuff for me." But my rule of thumb is give me more data than I know what to do with, and don't. Give it to me in a 6 terabyte, TIFF file or something. I'm fine. I will find a way to sort of look through it, as opposed to, I think I've seen a lot of interfaces where it's kind of like, it's about a half page of high-level data, and it's like, that's totally useless from my perspective.
Yeah, so our take is search marketers, just like they know their clients' search terms, they should be the same ones who know how those exact search terms perform on the display side, whether it's for search retargeting or for contextual targeting on a Google-like display network. Is that the right term? Something like that. But yeah, so that's where the expertise should lie, is in the search marketers, and they can take that same expertise from search right over to display.
So one question I had actually goes back to the last panel that James had asked. I wanted to get your feedback on what you thought about Yahoo's decision to cut off the DSPs from their inventory, I think right before Thanksgiving.
I guess to continue with my trend of slamming the portals and the engines. I think it's pretty. We all
have jobs here.
Yeah, I think it's done with not the advertiser in mind. That being said, it's not unsimilar to what we've seen in search with the Search Alliance. Frost brought up a good point, or maybe David did. Yeah, how's that worked out? So, I think it's. I think the trend that I see coming up through search marketing and now getting into buying more and more display through the DSPs is that I'm seeing more and more media across the board becoming biddable, becoming auction-based. And we as search marketers have a great talent of being able to ingest large amounts of data, make real-time decisions on that, and base it in performance. And so as this trend of more and more media becoming biddable continues, I think we're going to be best positioned to be the ones to best capitalize on that.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of when, I don't know if any of you remember back in around 2000, if you were buying ads back then, the yellow pages would not allow people to put URLs in their listings. And it was kind of like, sticking your head in the sand. It was like, you're winning a very small battle here, but, you're losing the war. And it also reminds me of that book, The Innovator's Dilemma, where you just get pushed into a corner. So I think I don't think there's any doubt that it's not good for advertisers. It's not good for maybe it's in the short term good for publishers. Maybe it somehow artificially raises some prices. I don't fully understand how that would be the case. But yeah, I think it's just a very short-sighted, short-term win for them.
David, you spoke about your position earlier on DSPs, but you'd recently written an article sort of characterizing the rise and fall of DSPs. And reading through the commentary here, I know that Frost has somewhat a divergent point of view here. So
shocking.
Let's get into it here.
It was mainly aimed at criticizing Frost's business model, actually.
We are exploiting transparencies or inefficiencies in the marketplace. Yeah.
No, I think that I'm not critical of DSPs. I think anyone who could build a DSP is way smarter than me, for sure. But I think the challenge, what I was pointing out was that if you look at a lot of technology providers, historically, who are sort of infomediaries or middlemen between an end user and a access to data. It's a troubling sort of history. So I think one of the analogies that I gave was electronic stock trading platforms. And I don't know if Bill from Scottrade is still here. He might have taken off. But if you look at you look at E-Trade or Scottrade when they first came out, simply access to the data enabled them to disrupt Charles Schwab or the old school brokers. Today, your banks give away that access for free. Your banks give you actually some good research for free, and so those companies are being pushed into a corner where they have to charge less and less. I mean, go check out E-Trade stock since 2000. It's down 90%, and that's not just because of the bubble in 2000. So you have this sort of increasing margin compression on just access to data. And then I think the other challenge that I brought up is the 800-pound gorilla, which is Google. It's not a real big secret that Google has acquired Invite Media, TerraSense, a little company called DoubleClick, and
AdMeld.
I was talking to AdMeld right on the publisher side. I was talking to Vincent from Credio last night. I mean, they have 4 or 5 engineers, I'm told, working on display at Google. And I think Google in general hates middlemen. I think from a high-level perspective, if you look at like a Larry Page or a Sergey Brin, I think they want internal technology to solve everything. Google Analytics would be a good analogy to that as well, where they don't want people using Omniture. They want people using Google Analytics. They don't want people using Yahoo Mail. They want people using Gmail, et cetera. So you combine sort of this sort of downward compression on margins that happens in technology businesses, and the fact that you have an 800-pound gorilla who doesn't like middlemen and who's going to offer your services for little or no cost, and potentially have access to data. sorry, Frost. Sell now, sell. Potentially have access to sell to Google. Access to data that is incredible. I mean, in terms of the user base that they have, and I just think it's the current iteration of DSPs is in trouble. Now there's lots of iteration ahead, but that was sort of my point.
Okay, David, that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard in this whole panel.
We are out of time, Frost. So
No. So Google's clearly, 800-pound gorilla and is making a lot of headway in display. I mean, the difference with search and display is Google owns the inventory in search, right? That's a very different thing where they own the inventory. On the display side, we've got this huge long tail. We've got this huge diverse amount of inventory providers. And so, I think the question is, do publishers really want to sell all their inventory through Google? And do buyers really want to buy all their inventory through Google? And certainly Google's going to be a huge player, but I think there's room for, and maybe not all of the Terry Kawaja, Lumascape players survive. That I've subscribed to that, but there's certainly in a quickly growing market. There's a lot of room for there's a lot of room for a lot of players.
But one thing I will say though,
and independence, I'd say.
So look at the analytics space, though, as maybe a corollary. 10 years ago, you had Website Story, Web Trends, Omniture, Core Metrics. I can't remember the other 16 that might have been there. And today, it's really a matter of, it's really Google Analytics and Omniture. And people choose Omniture partly because I think they want the integration with other, maybe Adobe.
Because they don't want to use Google.
And because they don't want to use Google, and they want to give the data to Google. But that's really that's a one-to-one. That's a one monster versus another monster. And to your point about the Lumascape sort of, PowerPoint of logos, a lot of those just aren't going to be able to exist. So there will be a place, but if it follows the analytics path, there will be a couple DSPs and not 36 companies that currently call themselves DSPs.
Either that or they just change their name to DMP or AMP or whatever other buzzword
New TLA
acronym of the week is.
And I think the other thing too is, I think people may not want to use Google's tools, but first of all, Google makes it very attractive from a price perspective, and second of all, when you're working with the 800-pound gorilla, sometimes you don't really have a choice.
I'd say one business model. The other thing that Google doesn't provide currently is transparency, and so that's one of the main things that DSPs do provide is complete transparency. And so it'll be interesting to see where Google goes.
Well, except that on the GDN, Google actually provides a fair amount of transparency.
Right. Now,
yeah. But and this is what I sort of like when I look at DSPs. I think like I'd like to have reporting that is analogous to GDN. You know, sub URL level. Information. Various types of reporting that's like real time, using Google's, MapReduce or whatever their Hadoop thing is. So I think in a way they provide more transparency than the DSPs. Now there's other ways that they don't provide transparency in terms of like, for example, how much money they're making on a transaction, what the actual
what's
cost.
What's your media cost, what's your data cost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the sort of, I'm not as dumb as I look in the sense that I know that if Google's offering something for free, quote unquote, it's not necessarily free. I mean, when you pay 70 cents for a click on the GDN, you're, approximately 21 cents of that is going to Google as a service charge. So I get that. But in many ways, I think Google has been very transparent in their existing products.
one thing I did want to say, sort of a negative Google vibe going at the moment, but I had a chance to see. I was at the Search Engine Strategy Show in 1998, and the keynote speaker was Alta Vista, and they came on the stage and basically characterized the search engine marketing industry as a cottage industry that was going to kind of go the way of the dodo and really to trust the algorithm. And then Sergey was the next person to take the stage, and he said that he loved it. He embraced the search marketers heavily, and I think it's worked out pretty well for us since then. But I can see from Alta Vista's point of view, it didn't work out so well for them. So hopefully the middlemen, us, will be here for a while.
I mean, look, Google pays pretty much everyone's salary in this room. So, right? I mean,
exactly.
And for our drinks.
And for our drinks. Right.
Well, I think it's time to check in with the crowd. Rob's Bloody Mary's here to see how feisty they become.
I had a question about the role of agencies and technology, and specifically coming off the last session as well. This is a rapidly evolving space, and how do you guys see this playing out with agencies and the technology vendors, specifically with the technology vendors kind of coming up with great recommendations that people can't do? How do they play together?
Can I take that one first?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of DSPs start becoming agencies. Like they move away from their core proposition of being a valuable ad technology, and they become more and more through professional services trying to become agencies. So that's how I've seen that evolve.
Well, I'm pretty much of the opinion buy, don't build in everything we do. I think I tried to build my own search algorithm in 2006, and the result was our COO went out and founded Marin Software instead. So, I know that building things is not a good idea internally.
A good idea for him.
Yeah, good for him. I think the biggest challenge that I see is the complexity of working with multiple technology partners, on the one hand. On the other hand, that I don't know that there's any technology partner that can truly be great at every single media channel that we're trying to work on. So just to give you an example, Chad, you're a Kenshu guy. I know Kenshu has a Facebook platform. I know you have integration with Criteo or Criteo. I think the general consensus that I've seen, and I'm not, a general consensus that I've seen is that the companies out there that are building a standalone Facebook management platform are ahead of the campaign management companies. Probably, for that matter, the companies that are out there focusing on DSPs are ahead of campaign management companies. And then for that matter, anyone who's trying to go up against Kenshu or Marin and building their own search technology is way behind. So the biggest challenge that I see is just the complexity of just having to pick and choose 6 different vendors. And I think the good news for agencies is that all this stuff makes my brain hurt, for sure. And I think it makes it harder and harder for someone who's in-house to possibly try to keep up with all this. My strategy is basically going to be, which I think has been adopted by many other agencies, so I'm not saying something revolutionary, is to sort of have vertical expertise within the agency in different channels. So there's no way that a search marketer can possibly be an expert in social, display, mobile, video, voice, whatever. So you have to sort of, I tweeted this yesterday. I think that the search engine marketing agency as we know it is dead because you can't just do search engine marketing anymore. You have to have people who do Facebook and who do display. So all this is just getting more complex. In the end, it's probably good for agencies. It's good for technology companies to a degree. How's that for a long-winded answer?
Just real quick, because I would say on the branding side of agencies, most of those companies, like the big holding companies, look to us to be putting their buys through trading desks, who are sort of this team who's going to figure out how to deal with RTB and do that. On the search side, I think the effort to get search agencies to put their dollars through trading desks, I think has been tougher because the search guys don't want to outsource it to another group within their own agency. They want to be on the front lines of understanding exactly how those campaigns run, how those, how the bidding is going, et cetera. So we see kind of a split between how the types of agencies on whether they're display or more performance search oriented.
Yeah, I want to have subject matter experts in every sort of channel, and I want them to take a search quantitative approach, but just get knee deep in the understanding each individual channel. What do you think, Jonah?
I totally agree with that. I mean,
echo.
You can't echo that. Rob said no.
The people in our group, I mean, we totally split out the people who are just pure play search marketers, and then those who are more traditional digital media buyers. They have the negotiation, the buying clout expertise in the background, and then these programmatic display buyers through DSPs. I think you definitely need different but very related skill sets, and I think you're right to say that putting it all through the realm of a search marketer's addiction to ROI and quantitative measures, I think is smart.
And I'm not adverse to view-throughs, by the way, as long as they're very highly attributed. I don't necessarily buy the sort of tell apart the view-through is worth 0, by the way, but you just have to measure it.
All right, this is the last panel of the day here, so who else has questions?
Any more questions from the group? Come on.
I have a question. Is there any more Bloody Marys left out there?
Yeah, what happened to
That's an important question.
They didn't make it past this line right here. They somehow.
So, no more questions? No? All right. Well, thanks to the Matt and the panel. Thank you, guys. So.